What up, world? What up, world? It's your boy Tommy D, the one and only, the kid, the nonprofit sector connector. You know what we're doing, right? It's Friday morning philanthropy in focus. We're at 223 episodes, but who's counting? Me. That's who's counting. I'm counting because every single week I get to bring another important organization on this show, another leader of a nonprofit to help them amplify their message, baby, and tell their story. I was on a podcast with my friend Isabel Landano called Celebrating Your Story in collaboration with Smile Farms out here on Long Island and 1-800 Flowers, Jim McCann, the whole story there. And I met Jim in the hallway while I was about to do the show. What a great organization 1-800 Flowers is from a philanthropic perspective, creating Smile Farm. And just the work they do for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities to help them and empower them to get work. Our careers, our work, the things we do every day is so important to our character, right? So important to what we do in the world. And I just want to say thank you to Isabel because it was the first episode Isabel got to do that show, and she invited the nonprofit sector connector to be on that show. So shout out to my friend Isabel. Just talk about connecting, a little bit of connecting. So Isabel and I know each other when she was doing some programs work out here with Best Buddies out on Long Island. Best Buddies, an international organization founded by Anthony Kennedy Shriver. I've been on the New York City, New York State Advisory Board. We just rolled out into the Long Island Advisory Board, and I knew Isabel from when she was over there. She's now at Smile Farms. We connected a couple weeks back, and then all of a sudden I'm on a podcast. You know, this is just how fast it goes. So talk about connections. First of all, I'm going to say hello to my guest, Anthony Barrows, and then talk about connections, and then come back and we'll get into the show. But Anthony, good morning, bro. What's up? How we doing?
Good morning, Tommy D. Happy Friday. I'm doing well.
Happy Friday to you, man. Rock and roll. I dig the goatee, man. You know, we're from an era, man, where you can see a lot of guys walking around with beards, you know, like a full, like a proper beard. But you can tell, like, when guys are rocking a goatee, we're from a different era, man. You know, you know what I'm talking about?
The 90s are alive, man. I'm telling you.
100%, man. So funny. My wife and I have been together for 100 years. Not exactly 100, but since 1999, you know? And she always tells me, so actually, she gave me a haircut the other day before I went on that big podcast. And she shortened my sideburns from what they typically are. They're pretty long and obvious and maybe a little obnoxious, right? And she's like, she tells me like maybe 6 months ago, she goes, you know, like these sideburns that you have, you know, they're not in style. I go, Christine, I don't think they were in style when I first met you when I had them. This is Tommy D. It's part of the thing. And if you look at the logo, the guy in the logo has the drawing has the big sideburns. So I'm just trying to keep looking like that guy is what it is. So that's how I do my things. I look at what I look like in a drawing of myself, and that's how I decide what I'm gonna look.
I love it.
Shout out to anybody still rocking a goatee, man. A goatee is a good look for sure. Don't, you know, listen, do you, whatever your thing is, man, do that. Where the heck are we going? I don't know. Tell us who you are, and then I'll go back in a couple things, how we got here. So just really quick, I just want to know your name, which we did already, the organization and what you do with the organization, and then I'm going to take it back, and then we'll come back again.
Absolutely. So, thank you for having me. Good morning to the audience out there. My name's Anthony Barrows, and I'm the executive director of Lyft New York. We are the New York branch of Lyft's national organization. We operate in three other cities besides New York: Chicago, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles. And in short, we do anti-poverty work, and happy to talk more about that as we go.
We're going to get into that. Yeah. So let's just tell a story. Hey, Tommy D, they might say, what the heck is a nonprofit sector connector? And I would say, well, that's me. But you would have to understand what it's all about. So let me break it down for you. So we founded an organization called the Nonprofit Resource Hub. That's not where the connector comes from, but I want you to understand something. So we're at the Long Island Children's Museum. Shout out to my friend Erica Floresca. It was her birthday this week. I called her and I said, Erica, happy birthday. And I think I sang or sung, I singed. So either way, I said to her, don't forget, you're my only ever guest of this show where we lived through an earthquake. Anthony and everybody else. Eric and I were doing the show. There was an earthquake here, and it was like my whole house was shaking. And we kept the show must go on. So we kept doing the show, and we never even talked about it until the show was over. It was like 10:45, so we had time to go on the show, man. And then I hope that'll be the only ever episode. So Erica and I will always have that connection. Also, I hope that will be because I was a little scared, as they say, but the show went on either way, even though the house was a shaking. All right, so we're at the Long Island Children's Museum event for the Nonprofit Resource Hub, which if you don't know about that, gang, go to nonprofitresourcehub.org. It is a nonprofit that we founded, 501c6 trade association that we founded with Ken Serini and the team at Serini and Associates. My partners, Ed and Vinny at Vanguard Benefits. Sir Tillman Ballin, David Goldstein, who runs a nonprofit governance practice at Sir Tillman Ballin out here on Long Island, and Christine Deskett and Frank Orzo from Nonprofit Sector Strategies, the founding team of NRH, the Nonprofit Resource Hub. So back to the story. Meanwhile, back at the real story, we were at Long Island Children's Museum for a networking meet and greet. And these two women were there from Tuesday's Children. So I start chatting it up. I go, "Oh, I'm aware of your organization, not totally familiar with the organization." And they said, "Can you tell me more?" "Oh, I love it. It'd be great. I want to feature you guys on the show." Fast forward a little bit. Executive Director, CEO Becky Russman comes on the show later on. One of the colleagues who I started networking with leaves. Victoria leaves Tuesday's Children and goes over to Lift NY, right? And says right away, "Tommy D, you are the nonprofit sector connector." I said, "Guilty as charged." So we what happens next? She says, "I got to hook you up. I got to connect you with Anthony Barrows over here." And I said, "Let's do it, man." And that's the ripple effect. We'll talk more about ripple effect, but it's what I was saying to you. Got to make a shout out, Carol Berkowitz. I know you're listening. Shout out to Panoptis out here on Long Island, serving people experiencing homelessness through homeless shelters and different things like that. But Carol and I were talking yesterday, and I told you, Anthony, before we got started, there's a perfect fit. When we get into technical assistance and some of the stuff that Lyft does, we're going to talk all about that. But this is what it is, gang. That's what a nonprofit sector connector is. There's only one right now, but I have been deputizing little nonprofit sector connectors. Speaking of which, who is like vying for the title, excuse me, is my very, very good friend, Kellyanne Serini from Serini and Associates, who runs our marketing not only for the Nonprofit Resource Hub, not only for Serini and Associates, but also for both the New York City and Long Island Imagine Awards. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, text me and I'll tell you all about the Imagine Awards. All right, Mr. Barrows. Now, I'm out of breath, so you're gonna have to do some of the talking. So here's the story. Here's the story of a guy named Anthony Barrows. It's extra today. I feel it already, man. We're just getting warmed up. All right, so let's just go this way. I always like to say, and I said it to you earlier. I said it to you earlier in the week. I want you to tell your story. How do we get to the nonprofit sector, right? How did you get to the nonprofit sector? Why this type of work? Why poverty type work? And there's something I'm going to pull a post. I'll read this post later on that I caught on LinkedIn it's from a couple weeks ago. You probably know the post because I think I brought it up to you on Wednesday when we spoke. But from your perspective, can you take us? I look back, I do a little research. Boston, are you from Boston?
100%. Yeah. Lived in the city of Boston for 30 years. Before I moved to California at 25 to go to grad school, the farthest away from Boston I lived was Cambridge, which is like saying the farthest I lived from Brooklyn was Queens. So I'm very Bostonian. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I'm not going to be a wise guy, but I will say this. The funny thing about it is, look, I've been like in like Ocean City, Maryland, and somebody's like, "Oh, where you guys from, Boston?" I'm like, "Come on, man!" Like, I don't even think like, and I don't mean that because no hate for Boston, but I don't think I sound like a guy from Boston. I sound like a guy from Strong Island. I think I do, and sometimes I turn it up a notch, and then sometimes I speak very proper, Anthony. I try to be very proper, but Strong Island represent. But I'm not hearing a lot of "ya dude" and stuff like that from you. So is that because when you went to the West Coast, maybe you lost a little of that, or what?
Growing up, we in my family were taught to not speak with a Boston accent, to pronounce our R's, because it was thought of in my household as a little déclassé.
Yeah, sure.
But if you give me a cocktail, it might slip out.
I love it. I love it. It reminds me of the movie The Departed, where the not the Matt Damon character, the other character killing me, Mick Collins, the other character where he's like Southie and then not Southie on the weekends. He was like, remember that whole scene? Great movie, by the way. Gang, I'm screwing up the movie. Let's get back to the show. All right. Is it Leo? Is Leo DiCaprio, maybe? So
Indeed.
it is. All right. So you're a Boston guy, and tell me your story growing up. Like, where do we get to this, like, there's work, and you mentioned that's where you're from. You mentioned West Coast. Let's go into all that. Tell me your story, please.
Yeah. Well, I think that public service has always been a part of my life. So this really started from the time that I was a little kid. I like to say that I've been getting public services from the time that I was in utero. So I grew up super poor in Boston, grew up in the projects. You name the public program, and I was a part of it. So, got WIC when I was merely a fetus.
Yep.
We got food stamps when they were still pieces of paper, cream and beige that I was embarrassed to go spend down at the corner store on a gallon of milk. Went to the public schools, got my treatment at public hospitals. We relied on welfare, which was AFTC at the time, now TANF. So these are systems that I experienced firsthand, up close and personal from the time that I was little. And I was really lucky to have lived in a place like Boston where these resources are abundant, and they're well staffed. And there's a noblesse oblige in Boston where there's a real belief that people deserve access to excellent things. And so, all of that served me well. I was able to get a good education, get into college, have it paid for. And when I graduated from college, made a choice to go back into public service. So when I was a teenager, I went into the foster care system, and ended up emancipating from the foster care system. When I turned 18, stayed attached to the system to get some help from school. But when I was done, decided to go back and be a social worker because it was clear to me that I got a lot of help and I got a lot of lucky breaks that allowed me to succeed. And I looked around at some of the kids that I grew up with in the neighborhoods that I came from, in the group homes that I lived with, and not all of them were doing well. And for my money, even as like a 22-year-old kid, I said, everyone deserves the shot that I got. Everyone deserves to be treated the way that I was, to have people take chances on them. And so went into doing direct service social work with teenagers in the foster care system right out of college.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so touched by that because I try to reflect on, myself at that age, 21, 22 years old. I was, sort of trying to find a way to actually graduate from college, which took me, I was a bit on the longer plan. I was a bartender at the time, lived at home with my parents and things like that. So didn't experience some of the things you experienced because as I was hearing you talk, I'm like, wow, man, that's super mature seeing the world that way. But because I don't, it took me to my late 30s to see the world that way, if not later than that now. So, I guess I don't guess life's all about experiences and those experiences where you were my word, but I think it fits, appreciative and grateful for what you got so as a 22-year-old young man, sometimes my lips try to move faster than my brain can manage or vice versa. But either way, you saw that need and you saw that you wanted to be part of the solution for people. And, just thank you, man. I'm grateful because I love this sector and I'm grateful for people like you who just lean in and say, this is my mission. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I think, just to pull two threads of what you just said, yes, I'm grateful and thankful for all of that. But I also was, filled with a little bit of anger, Tommy, like the fact that I got things that other people didn't, who deserved it just as much, has been like at the heart of my
Yeah.
motivation in all of this work because people deserve nice things.
Well,
People
yeah.
deserve excellent service. People deserve to be able to thrive. And so that's a big part of what my career has been about and a huge part of what Lyft does every day.
Yeah. We're going to get into all that. People deserve excellent service. What was that thing you said? I couldn't catch it. And I want to make sure bleed or believe or something like that. There was that term. We might have to go back to it.
Yeah, I mean, well, one of the things that I'll say, and I know we're coming up against a break, so I'll be brief, is belief barriers. Like that's something that we've struggled with a lot in the sectors that I've worked in, is that, if you grew up like I did, in the projects, without a lot of money, without a lot of resources, without a lot of social connections, and somebody came to you and said, hey, you should go be a nonprofit leader, you should go into academia and become a professor. And you're a kid who's 14, 15 years old, and you're looking around and you're like, listen, like college, like who here goes to college?
Doesn't even, there's no representation, right? I don't see
Indeed,
people. Right. Got it. Yeah.
indeed, indeed. And so if you can't see it, it's hard to imagine doing it. And those beliefs are some of the things that can really get in the way.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons that I always talk about my experiences, because on the off chance that there's somebody out there that shares my experiences that doesn't think that they can do it, I want to be living proof that they can.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I think about that is in terms of representation, meaning representation in the sense that, people who look like me doing that thing, right? Now it could be deceiving, right? So for those of you who are not watching and just listening, Andy Barrows and Tommy D are white men. Okay, so the thing there I would say is it might look like, well, these guys don't look like me, but the story looks like a story. I'm just saying if it was somebody who is not a white person who I can see anybody, and this is gang, you know what? I'm totally vulnerable in the show and everything I do, right? I could see people who look exactly like me, maybe not as handsome, but I could see people who look exactly like me doing everything, anything I could ever actually dream about doing in this world. I don't think there's not now, is that privilege? Yeah. I mean, like, I see that. Like, now, I don't want to be the president of this country, right? For a million reasons. I'm pretty busy. I got a lot of stuff going on. But and I never wanted to be a scientist, right? But I never wanted to be an astronaut. But I could see people who look like me, right? We're going to hold on the break for a second because I want to hear your opinion on that. It's more of the representation of the actual story, right? Not the physical form. What are your thoughts on that? We just riffed on it, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, first of all, I'll say that I am a very light-skinned man, but I am in fact Latino. So my father is from Chihuahua, Mexico.
Thank you.
Shout out to all my
So
Latinx folks out there.
see, I didn't know, but see, shame on me. But we haven't met in person, and I'm looking at you. So thank you for repping and clearing that up.
Absolutely.
Sure.
But I think that what you're saying is right on, that like if you don't see people like you in whatever way, shape, or form that is, people from your neighborhood, people from your class background, people from your racial or ethnic identity, people from your gender expression out there doing the thing, being in power, making choices, being in those occupations, it can be dispiriting and it can make the possible seem impossible. And I'm all about helping to transform that.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. That's what this show is all about, man. It's all about it is, and look at me. I stand corrected on your ethnicity there, right? So like a little bit of assumptions. We got to be careful with those for sure. And I'm all about just saying, hey, let's learn together. So I think the more we can have these types of dialogues and conversations, the better we all are for doing that. Look, we're going to talk about the organization. We're going to talk about Chicago, Washington, D.C. A lot going on down there right now. We're going to talk
Mhm.
about Los Angeles. We're going to talk about Lyft. We're going to talk about the technical assistance program and all the things you're doing. And I got to tell you, Anthony, I mean, this is probably not lost on you, but your candor and telling your story, obviously, doing the work is doing the work, right? But this is part of the mission. So thank you for being so open and real with your story and your upbringing. And gang, I tell you this all the time, the nonprofit sector, I was going to say the nonprofit sector connector because I could barely stop myself. The nonprofit sector is an incredible place to work. And I'm tired of hearing that, folks think they're going to have to take a discount to go work in the nonprofit sector. You could be leaders of nonprofit organizations when you put in the time, do the work, get the education, get the experience you need, and get the right mentorship. And I think, Anthony, you're proving that out. That a kid who came from tough times, came from the foster care system, is running a very important organization. And I think that's a big part of the stories we're telling. We got to take a quick break because part of the show is Tommy D runs long on all the breaks, and then we have a very small segment at the end of the show because I botched the beginning of the show. But I promise you, we're going to get it all in. We'll be right back. The nonprofit sector connector, philanthropy in focus.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a purpose-driven individual looking for deeper healing, clarity, and growth? Welcome to the Expansion Room, a transformative space for purpose-driven individuals. I'm Siobhan Larice, host, licensed therapist, and coach. Join me every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Oh, man, I had a dream this morning, and it was more like a daydream because I was awake, and I was like going, man, I'm going into the studio this afternoon to do a couple shows. We're going to do a show about hashtag ending the stigma together. We're going to have Denise and Janito from North Shore Family Guidance. I'm going to have my buddy Eddie Sosa. Shout out to Sosa's Sandwich Shop. Eddie Sosa is going to come in and bring in some Cuban sandwiches. We're going to eat them on set, and then we're going to do another episode with my buddy Theo of Long Island Changemakers. And I was going, man, I wonder if it'd be more convenient if I started doing philanthropy and focus at the studio, but then I wouldn't be in the attic. And then do I have to make a new song, or do I have to make it look like I'm in the attic? It's a lot to deal with, Anthony. It's a lot of stuff. When being Tommy D is not a walk in the park, although sometimes I like to take a walk in the park. All right, so guys, before we get back into it, Costigan was the name of the character that Leonardo DiCaprio played in that movie. And he was like a double agent, like he was undercover. Remember, like they made him like fail out of the academy and do all that kind of stuff. What a great movie, The Departed, So that has nothing to do with the show. So we'll get back into what does have to do with the show. I went to the website. I shared the website if you're watching, whywelift.org. Why, like WH letter Y, welift.org. Some information about the impact of the organization, things like that. All right, we're going to get into all that and what the organization does. I want to kind of put a bow on some more of your story, right? So, coming out of college, you decide this is the work that you're destined to do, and you are angry. And I love that. I got this phrase. I totally ripped this off from somebody a long time ago. Pissed off for greatness. So I'll give you that. I feel like you were pissed off for greatness. You saw a better opportunity for people. You didn't like the things that, my words, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if things were not equitable, it was not fair, people didn't get it, right? And you said, well, BS on that. I don't ever say curses, but BS, I do all the time. I just don't do it on the show. Gang, people laughing and going, what are you talking about? Of course you do. But, kind of like you were like, BS on that. I'm going to change the world, right? So how does that happen? How does that start?
Yeah. So right away went into direct service, was working with kids who were aging out of the foster care system, just like I had recently, and did that work for a number of years, pivoted out to California for a minute and was doing adolescent adoption work, because it's one thing to learn independent living skills. It's another thing to have a permanent family, because none of us live in isolation as islands. And knowing how to get a driver's license and rent an apartment is not the same thing as having a place to eat Thanksgiving dinner. So did that work for a few years, came back to New England, where I'm originally from, and was doing some system improvement work. But after about a decade of that work, I realized that no one was going to make me the assistant commissioner of any child welfare organization with an undergraduate double major in philosophy and art and an MFA in printmaking. So I decided to go back to school, got a policy degree with the aim of climbing the child welfare ladder. And while I was doing that degree, became persuaded that something else was also true, which is that the system, child welfare system, systematically confuses poverty and neglect. So you'll see a kid come to school hungry or maybe without a winter coat, and oftentimes the system will say, this is a neglectful parent. They're not doing what they need for their kid. But in actuality, for the most part, the vast majority of the time, parents know what they want and need for their kids to be well, but they don't necessarily have the resources to do it. And so because of that, made a pivot to doing anti-poverty work when I got out of that policy program.
So let me ask you. So first of all, thank you for it. I saw that. I saw that child coming in, maybe in my mind with dirty clothes or whatever, are like telltale signs that an education system, again, I love what you keep using that word system, but a system is going to respond and think that the parent isn't quote unquote doing the right thing. The parent wants to do the right thing. My words, not yours, but I think that is a challenge of resource distribution. Okay. And maybe just people, this is the stuff that makes me so angry. I just as a timeout, I, there is so much stuff that we can give to people. There is plenty. There is more than enough. Okay. The fact that we act as if there's not enough is nonsense, in my opinion. Okay.
Indeed. Agreed.
This is all about access and it's all about distribution, which I believe really comes down to people actually caring about the person next to them. And that's what this show, a lot of what I try to do in the world and what the show is about that caring. And if you care, how do you walk by somebody and not try to help them? Like, that's another human being, man. Like, I'll tell one quick story because it's very important to me. And I think it's a telling story. I'll try to be quick with it. I'm being honored by Options for Community Living. Everybody, well, if you don't know now, you know, September 26th, Captain Bill's Options for Community Living, serving people living with HIV and AIDS, experiencing homelessness, substance abuse. My friend Yolanda Rabano Gross goes to visit with one of their clients she's a CEO out there. She goes to visit with a client who's in the hospital. And she tells me like one like kind of unique situation is when a homeless person has a friend or colleague in the hospital, it's a nice place to go visit because it's cool in the summer, it's warm in the winter, it's nice clean bathrooms, etc. Yolanda goes to say hello, check in on this individual and sees one of this individual's friends and or colleagues. And Yolanda reaches out to shake the man's hand, which is what something human beings do. The man goes, so she felt bad because it was during COVID. So Yolanda thought she offended this man. And it wasn't that because he was a little standoffish. He wasn't offended. He was taken aback. He goes, nobody ever wants to touch me. Nobody ever reaches and tries to shake my hand because maybe I didn't give it full context, but he's also a homeless person who was there visiting. And that's not humanity to not want to care, Anthony. I go on these tangents on the show. I apologize, gang. You must like it because you keep coming back. So that to me is because to me this is a journey. We're just trying to figure things out, and that piece there. This all comes out of you talking about the difference between poverty and neglect. So you saw at one point where you were going to school, going back for your education to get on the government side, to be a change maker, as I say, in structure. Is that part of it? It's because it sounds like we get away from that. Is that what you thought originally you would do?
That's absolutely right. And, one thing that I'll say, and this is a thread from earlier that we didn't pick up, is the importance of lived experience and lived expertise in making changes to systems and making improvements to systems. So, when I got done with my policy degree, as I said, I went into doing some anti-poverty work, starting in the applied research space. And my goal was to make sure that as we were thinking about improving systems, innovating within them, name the public systems, the ones that I talked about earlier, food supplementation programs, cash assistance, that we were doing two things. So I joined an organization that was doing work in the behavioral economic space. And my goal was to make sure that we were listening to the lived expertise of the people that were navigating those systems, because it's really important to think about what we can learn from the academy. Like we can do good statistical stuff, we can use insights from psychology and all kinds of other research programs. And if we're not simultaneously listening to the people that use those systems on a day-to-day basis about what's working well that we need to do more of and what's not working well that we need to fix, we're definitely going to get it wrong. And so that's what I spent the next decade of my career working on, trying to make sure that the systems that people rely on work as well as they can for the people who need them.
So how do you do that? Is that through assessments with people and say, okay, this mother, this is just an example. This mother comes to me with her two young children, comes to an agency with her two young children. There was a movie that was on Netflix. It was called Maid. And it was this woman who's like a housekeeper and she's got a kid and she's trying to make it work. And every time she goes to like an agency, they send her like to another agency and she's like looking for housing. And then you have to get this voucher. Now, I don't know how much of this was fictitious and how much of it was, I didn't live that experience. I don't have that experience. So I would not be necessarily somebody who could tell and inform very well what that experience looks like. So we're going to go long on this segment here too, because I want to understand, how do you do that? How do you assess? Because, no, Barrows, this is how we do things here, Barrows. This is how it goes. Well, yeah, but if it doesn't serve the people we're trying to serve, then that's probably not the way we should be doing it. So how do you do those assessments and get that data?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, the traditional way is to think about looking at some of the data and look at drop-off points. So, if we're trying to serve a population and they're getting the service and then they lose it, what can we correlate that with in the process that they have to go to? Is it, getting your recertification form filed? Is it, some kind of age milestone? So that's like one traditional policy analyst way of doing it. In the work that I did, we supplemented that by doing perhaps the most important, but also most basic thing that a lot of people don't think to do because it sounds so straightforward, which is just to talk to the people. So go out and talk to the folks that are struggling to maintain their access to Medicaid, to SNAP, to WIC, and understand their experience. Walk alongside them as they try to fill out the forms or understand the requirements. And that is one of the most important resources that we've got in trying to think about how to improve outcomes in these systems.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't, I have a lot of feelings about, and I'm also not well versed enough into what I'm about to say, but again, it's my show. I'll just take a shot at it. So with what's going on right now in this country, as we sit here and today, just gang for whenever you found this, it is August 15th, 2025. So what's going on in this country right now, those who have the most need are in jeopardy of losing access to these services. That to me is absolutely ludicrous. That what exactly? Where is the gang? I'm going to go out there. This is not a red or blue issue. This is a human issue. What are we doing? And I don't even just mean, first of all, I am speaking about this country, but I never understand, Anthony. I don't think I'll ever be able to understand how, as a planet of a species of humans, that anybody can go hungry. It goes back to my complaint about resource distribution. And I can say all these big words. I don't have the answers, gang. Like I'm just saying, I'm with you. I'm pissed off for greatness to that. How on earth, literally on this planet, how on earth can that be a way we engage? How can, here he goes, tangent. How can somebody eat a $150 Kobe steak 20 yards from somebody's eating out of a dumpster? I don't understand that. I'm not saying tax.
Indeed. And I think you said it earlier, like very aptly. We have the resources if we want to use them in a way that makes sure that everyone has enough. If we wanted to, we would be able to create a floor that would be dignified for everyone.
What? You and I are going to have to talk for 3 hours about this offline or online. I don't care either way, but that's just that's called just right. That's just doing the right thing for people. So we're going to go to break. We're going to get into again. I really feel like I'm so glad I met you. Shout out to Victoria. Shout out to the two women that were at the Nonprofit Resource Hall back in like October of last year, which all these ripples don't come together if we don't do this. I honestly, my friend, I see us doing a lot of cool stuff together because I'm a guy who can put people, as they say, put fannies in the seats. And then, I would edify and go, you got to listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about, right? So I'm the guy with the bullhorn. Hey, look over here. Look over here. A little bit of P.T. Barnum, if you will. If you don't know, check it, Google him. All right, we'll be right back. The showman will be right back. See you.
Misalignment within your sales team or with the client stalls deals and creates unnecessary friction for you and the client, resulting in up to 37% lower win rate. If you're in pre-sales, sales management, or sales enablement, and you'd like to increase revenues, win rate, margins, client satisfaction, and stay competitive, this show is for you. Hi, I'm Art Fromm, host of the Making Seamless Sales Show. Please join me live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the Nonprofit Sector Connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
You know, you might be saying, oh, this is going to be one of those episodes where Tommy D gets all angry because people don't care about each other. Yeah, that's the whole show. That's what the show is all about, because this is all about love and compassion. You know, when you walk down the street, I mean, I was in New York City yesterday. I had to go in for a couple meetings. I'm out here on Long Island, but I shot into the city for a little bit. And I walked past a place where it was, I didn't look closely enough because I was late to be somewhere. But I walked past, it had to be either a shelter or a pantry or something like that. And some woman was coming out, and, you know, she was screaming, like she was very upset. And it wasn't, she didn't need support. She was at a place where I didn't need to go help her, is what I'm saying. It was a situation where she was angry with whatever service she was either receiving or not receiving from this place. There's people around, and I just think, like, that's another human being who needs support. I make no assumptions, but potentially there was some mental health challenges there, right? And that was what was going on. But to just like walk through our days and not be aware and understand and compassionate and loving, to see a person I mean, man, look, I grew up here, right? In and out of New York City my whole life. And just the fact that we allow people to, and I don't mean allow it like we shouldn't let them, but the fact that we allow people to live on the streets. Now, listen, not everybody wants to be in housing. I understand that. And it's not as simple as let's get everybody housing, because not everybody wants to come inside. And I don't know enough about, because I even learned that from my friend Yolanda Rabano Gross. Sometimes people live on the street and that's the way it is, and they're not ready, and maybe they'll never be ready, you know? I think by the way, go to the website, everybody, whywelift.org. Check it out. I was sharing it, but if you're only listening, check it out. If you're only listening, you should watch. It's a great show. It's things like that that make me a little crazy, you know, myself.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that what you're onto is something that is another big theme in the work that I do. And one of the things that really attracted me to Lyft, which is that people just deserve nice stuff. People deserve to be treated well. And one of the things that is important to know about Lyft, before we get into talking about the work that we do every day, is the kind of ethic that underlies and motivates our work.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about hope, money, and love being the basis of everything that we do at Lyft. And so hope is really about some of those beliefs that we talked about earlier. If you are given confidence by the people that are around you that you can get somewhere, that you can achieve your goals, that can help motivate action, because now you believe that it's possible. And that really comes from being treated with dignity and respect, and having people invest that hope in you. Now, the money, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. This is an economy, this is a world where you need resources to get things done. And for us, that takes two different kinds of forms. Thing number one is that we're really laser focused on economic mobility. So the work that we do is all anti-poverty work. We believe that you can lift people out of poverty 2 generations at a time if you work with parents to help articulate and pursue their goals. So we focus on money in that way. But also, as part of our coaching work, we give modest but meaningful cash transfers that add up to about $600 a year for parents to use in whichever way they want. You know, maybe they need to pay down a bill, maybe they want to take a vacation with their kids, or buy them something nice for their birthday. But it's hope, money, and love, because without love, we can't do the work. Without love, people can't prosper. Without love, we're not going to thrive. And so because we believe in love, we have that belief that everyone deserves nice things. But we also focus on the social aspect of our work to make sure that we're building bonds between our coaches and our members, the families that we work with, between the members and each other, and between everyone in this organization and everyone out in the world that we need to help move our work forward. So if folks forget everything else that we do, just remember hope, money, and love is the basis of what we do at Lyft.
Not for nothing, we don't know each other well yet, but how dare you, Mr. Barrows, come on this show that is all about business and capitalism and start talking about love? How dare you, sir? I don't understand what you're doing. I mean, to have that in the ethos as one of your tenets, hope, money, and love. Gang, I'm getting emotional here, but what the heck else are we talking about? Like, that's what it is. Support people, get in touch with people. I always tell check in with people. Hashtag ending the stigma together, ending the stigma around mental health and serious and persistent mental illness, ending the stigma around homelessness, ending the stigma around HIV and AIDS, 15 years sober coming up in September, ending the stigma of substance abuse. Gang, that's what we're doing here. Mr. Barrows, here we go. Now all of a sudden it's Mr. Barrows. Soon, before I know it, it's going to be Professor Barrows. So, Anthony, here's my question. Two generations at the same time. What does that mean? Tell me what you mean by that, actually. And then as much as you want to get into some programming, let's do that now. But tell me
Absolutely.
that's going to probably dovetail together anyway. So how's that work? That two generation thing?
Yeah, so we are a two-gen program, and basically what that means is if you're thinking about doing work out in the world, doing human services work, you got to think about a family as an entire unit. So if you're trying to do workforce development and you're not accounting for someone who's a parent needing childcare, you're probably not going to get as good results as you could. If you're doing early childhood work or secondary or primary education work, and you're not thinking about how to involve parents in that child's learning journey, you're also probably not going to get the kind of outcomes that you want. Because the reality is that we all live embedded in family and social units. So doing two-gen work means accounting for the whole family. Now, at Lyft, we are a parent-focused organization. So we care a great deal about making sure that there's opportunity for the next generation. And we truly believe that the way that we get there is by equipping parents with what they need in terms of their social connections, their knowledge, their employment opportunities, their financial savvy. So that's what we do with our work is family-centered coaching, where we focus on helping parents articulate their hopes and dreams for themselves and their kids, and then make plans on how they're going to get from here to there, and then coach them on a monthly basis to help give them both encouragement and accountability on pursuing those goals that they set for themselves.
So the first ever episode of this show was called, well, it was my friend, and I'm on the board of directors for Horseability, Katie McGowan. I love you, Katie. I love Horseability, great organization. The second ever episode of this show, I'm not going to give you all 223. The second, I'm just trying to get to two, was my friend, Dr. Larry Grubler from TSINY, Transitional Services for New York, which serves 5,000 individuals with serious and persistent mental illness each day. 5,000 in a year. Larry said to me that day on that show, he goes, Tommy D, we all need support at different times. He didn't say, hey, Tommy D, some people need support at different times. And I don't tell the world some people need support. I do tell the world this. I see my therapist twice a week, ending the stigma hashtag. I love saying the word hashtag. So, but I tell you that to just say we all need different levels of support. Family-centered coaching, right? Family-centered, looking at the unit. You're using these words continuously because that's what the organization does. But they are so smart. For lack of a better way of saying it, that is the way to do this work. We're going to go a little long now on this break too. So what do you think? Kind of fire off some programs and things like that. So the look and feel.
Yeah, so that direct service work that we do is the heart of Lyft, helping families articulate and pursue their goals, supplementing that with a little bit of cash on a quarterly basis that adds up to that $600 a year. And we work with people over the course of 2 years to reach their goals. And in those 2 years that people are with us as members, we see really meaningful progress. So here in New York City, people come in to our program typically making about $19,000 a year for a family of four, which, if you know any of the statistics about income here in New York City, is not a lot of money. So, the average income for a family of four in New York City is almost $76,000. So people are making a quarter of that. So all of our members are struggling financially, but they make massive increases while they're with us. So they're making progress towards goals that they articulate for themselves. For the people that care about employment and income over the course of the time that they worked with us, those 2 years, they're typically making about $21,000 increases in their income, which is an enormous benefit to families and for their kids.
Stop you for a second. So see if I got that right. An increase of 21,000. So we're at 19 and now at 40. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. For the people, exactly. For the people that are pursuing those employment outcomes as their main goal, we're able to basically double their income from baseline.
And that's about, job training, skills training, probably support so they can go to a different level. Maybe somebody's keeping that $19,000 job because that's what works inside of their dynamic of the family unit. However, if they have other support in other ways, right? I know I'm making stuff up, but maybe it's vouchers for childcare, whatever this type of thing is. So he or she can go out and get work. Or if it is a two-parent, right? If it's a two-parent household, maybe it's getting that childcare so both parents can go pursue maybe some vocational stuff and or go pursue a job that would be a higher revenue. Is it things like that?
Absolutely. And I'll name two other things that are really important. So it's not just making sure that you've got those resources to make work possible. It's also maybe pursuing things like an educational degree or certificate, but also really critically making sure that people are building their social capital. Because I don't know about you, but most of the jobs that I've gotten have been through knowing folks and having them vouch for me or make introductions.
I'm the nonprofit sector connector. What do you don't think? I don't know social capital. I know 100%, man. And I have these young people who sometimes reach out to me. Somebody say, hey, my kid just graduated from Hofstra. My kid just graduated over here, having a tough time in the, job market or whatever. I go, are they on LinkedIn yet? They don't know.
Indeed.
You gotta start there, and then I would never call myself a coach, but I do try to tell some young people that it is about networking, things like that. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a break, come back. I want 2 or 3 anecdotes about some families that you've really impacted as an organization, a little bit about the vision and how can we help? What do you need from us? What sort of, obviously we always talk about dollars, and we all, especially in our sector, are going to be more and more challenged as this current climate in this country is. So we know we need more money. So how's that sound? A couple anecdotes, what's upcoming for the organization locally and or nationally, and how we can help. Sounds good?
That's perfect.
That is the show, gang. We'll be back in a minute, but this is how quick it goes, man. It's like a blip, So we'll be right back.
On Frank About Health, we're not just talking healthcare. We're managing disruption and innovation. Over the last 4 years, I've taken you from epilepsy and COVID to mental health, caregiving, and now the front lines of healthcare transformation. Stay tuned for a healthier future as we bring on the innovators, professionals, storytellers, and advocates who show you how to own your healthcare every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Ready to serve up success with a splash? Hi, I'm Bruce Kramer, a.k.a. the Corporate Cockroach.
I'm the Renaissance woman, Angie Snowball.
And I'm your strategy doctor, Dr. Navtej Desange, inviting you to serving up success with a splash.
Join us as we shake things up with real talk and real strategies centered around awareness, action, and accountability.
And yes, there really is a cocktail involved. Please join us and sip your way to success.
Serving up success with a splash, where wisdom meets happy hours. Cheers!
Cheers.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
No, gang, I'm not just being cranky for cranky's sake when I say being pissed off for greatness. I'm just because I realize that we need to do more. That being said, there are organizations like Lyft, so many organizations and so many leaders and so many teams that are doing this great work. So I don't want this. If you know me, you know I'm not a negative Nelly. I said negative Nelly. That's not my bag, man. It's not. However, I want us to be able to do more. And that's what this show is all about, amplifying the message, telling stories for nonprofit organizations like Lyft. So there is great work going on. I'm not mad at the whole world. I'm just mad at part of the world. So, Anthony, let's get into, tell me about the lives of, here's how Susie's life was changed or John's life was changed or anybody's life. Tell me these stories.
Yeah, well, let me set it up by telling you like one last thing about Lyft and the way that we approach things. And this is one of the main reasons that I was super excited to join Lyft back in January. So I've only been here in the fold for 7 months. But one thing that animates everything that we do is that our members, our families' voices are at the heart of everything that we do. So whenever we make changes to the way that the organization operates, whenever we go out and tell the world what people need, it's not Anthony's ideas about what needs to happen. It's not any of my staff. It's the members themselves that are driving the change that we're looking for out in the world. So let me tell you about two other things that we do besides the direct service, and then I can give you a sense of how those things play out for us. So we've talked a little bit about our direct service work, that direct family-centered coaching that we do. It's impactful, as we talked about already, but we have a little bit of a rate limiting factor around it because it's labor intensive. And our ambition is not to grow infinitely. Our ambition is to create more impact out in the world. So we're trying to get there by two different methods. So method number one is the technical assistance that you touched on earlier and alluded to. But the basic idea behind it is that we know our coaching works. So there have been studies run by third parties that show that it works. We collect our own data and reflect on it, and that tells us that it works. But we can't do it all. There's no way that we could do coaching for all 2 million people in New York City that are living under the poverty line. So we want to do TA because we know that there are other organizations out there that share our anti-poverty mission, that have touch points with families who are invested in helping them achieve economic mobility. And that's what our TA team does. Is
How do they get in touch with you? If somebody's listening, shout out to Carol Berkowitz, shout out to Yolanda Rabano Gross. There's dozens in the shout out to Shannon Boyle at New Ground, Breaking the Cycle of Homelessness in the veteran community out here in Long Island. I know you mentioned New York City, but I'm thinking, some of the folks out here just as connections as well. How do they get in touch with somebody on your team, or is it you that they talk to on that technical assistance side?
Yeah, people can reach out directly to me. So it's ABARROWS at whywelift.org. And if I can't help you, I'll make sure that someone does. But I'm happy to have a coffee with anybody that wants to talk. So please reach out if you want to talk about the TA work. But that really is our aim, is to help replicate this coaching model with any organization that's got the means and the motivation. And I should say that
sorry, keep that thought 1 second. You guys cracked the code. Now it's like taking that and duplicating, right?
That's right. We got to share the knowledge so that our society can share the wealth. And I should say that although we are based in the South Bronx, and for the most part, the families that we work with come from Upper Manhattan and the South Bronx, our TA work is completely national. So we've partnered with people in Dallas. We've partnered with people in the other 3 cities. People around the country are getting this TA work. So we'd love to pursue more of it. And very locally, we've been working with the CUNY system, the public college system here in New York City. So,
I had some folks on it. So I went to Nassau Community College before I went to Baruch, and then I ended up graduating SUNY Old West Bay. Shout out to the SUNY system, really and the CUNY system, just the jewels of New York that some people overlook. But, there's a food pantry on the campus of Nassau Community College called The Nest. And, there are students who have to make a choice. Am I buying books or am I going to eat? I mean, this is the real stuff. So the colleges are certainly informed and aware. So I love that you work with the CUNY system. There's the technical assistance side. And I know there was another point we talked about the other day, and I know you want to drive.
Yeah. So, I mean, Tommy, this has been a really good conversation. So I'm glad that we're getting to this before we end. But one of the things that's most exciting about where Lyft is going, that I'm really excited to help lead here in New York City, is our policy and advocacy work. And so to take it right back to the themes that we've been talking about today, we know we've got enough resources for everyone to thrive in this country if we can just direct them the right way. We believe that everyone deserves excellence and the ability to thrive because they're treated like human beings and they've got enough for themselves and their family. And we also believe in the voices of our members directing all of the work that we do out in the world because they're experts on their own lives. They're the CEOs of their own families. They deserve to have the kind of power to make the choices that they need to. And all of that really motivates the policy and advocacy work. So right now, what we're thinking about for the next couple of years is at the state level and at the local level, equipping our members to articulate what they need from the world of policy and to go out and ask decision makers for those things.
I love that. I love that so much. I want to be with you guys when you go to Albany. I certainly want to help you if you want to do some of this out here on Long Island and get in front of the stakeholders. Shout out to my friend legislator Rebecca Sannon, Suffolk County legislator. I absolutely love the work she does in the world. She came on an episode of Long Island Changemakers. She's the coolest. And there are plenty of folks on the political side of things that really want to help people. I promise you, they are out there, gang. There are plenty of people who want to do it. And to give these individuals who are the most informed, as you're talking about, who experienced this as you did as a young person, and many of the folks that you deal with, they know what they need. And
That's right.
they're smart people. Let's give them a platform to say, hey, I'm not lazy, man. I need some resources. I need some support. And this is how we do it. So something about what you're talking about today. I mean, listen, it's like saying I have a favorite child. I don't. I mean, I have four of them, but it is usually the favorite one is the one who's being less mean to me on that particular day. But that's a whole other thing. I'll deal with that with my therapist later on. But the thing about that is I don't necessarily have a favorite part of this nonprofit sector, although I tend to, lean towards intellectually developmental disabled organizations as well as the mental health space. What you're doing is life-changing stuff, Anthony, man. I want to be more involved with Lyft. I talked to somebody from your comms team. This is just the beginning of this relationship. Let's keep it going, man. Let me know how I can help. If you're going up to Albany, you want to come out here and see legislators here on Long Island, doing something in the city. I told you this probably when we first met. I'm very connected to the gang at the Queens Chamber of Commerce. Tom Gretsch is a personal friend of mine. Brendan Levy is a personal friend of mine. They hang out with, folks in City Hall and stuff like that. So let's leverage some of my relationships, man. Let's talk about it offline. I appreciate it. Anything coming up we should know about? Any events, fundraisers, things you want us out? Tell me real quick if you could.
Yeah, so just to paraphrase Ayanna Pressley, the people that are closest to the pain should be closest to the solution. That's our ethic. And so what I would say is people should keep an eye out on our website or our social media. We have events where people, if they want to donate, they certainly can. If they want to volunteer, we've got a family supporter network program where people can sign up for recurring donations. Or if you just want to chop it up and hear more about the work that we're doing and figure out how to partner, please get in touch.
I love that, man. If you just want to chop it up, you want to make a donation, you can check all that out on whywelift.org, whywelift.org. If it wasn't for the people I know in this world making connections and bringing me closer to leaders like Anthony Barrows, well, then the show would be really difficult because I'd have to go try and find guests like I did for the first 2 episodes. But ever since, it's people going, Tommy D, you need to meet this person. Tommy D, you need to meet that person. And they're probably telling the other person, you need to meet this guy, Tommy D. He's incredible. You should hang out with him. Anyway, I love you all. I appreciate it. Happy Friday. As they say, Anthony Barrows, I can't wait to meet you in person, my friend. There's so much knowledge you have and the people in the community you're with. I can't wait to be a part of it. Everybody else that's listening, thanks for being supportive of the work I'm doing. I am just trying to shine a light on the great work done and make this place a little bit better for the next 50 years while I'm here and hopefully into the future after I depart. I'll see you later on. Make it a great day. Later, gang. Bye.
Thanks, all.
Profits need connections, move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his